Lena Cross wasn't running from the police, she was running from someone who always seemed a step closer, a faceless shadow whose presence turned a quiet October night into a relentless, collision-filled chase. The quiet suburban streets of Willow Creek were usually empty after dark, the kind of place where porch lights burned steadily and the only sound was the occasional bark of a restless dog. On a cold October evening, that calm was torn apart by the sudden wail of police sirens. A white sedan came hurtling out of the shadows, headlights off, slicing through the stillness like a blade. Tires screeched against the pavement as the car swerved recklessly, weaving between parked vehicles with a desperation that made bystanders freeze where they stood. Witnesses would later say it looked less like a car chase and more like a frantic escape from something unseen. The first call to the local dispatcher came at 10:17 p.m., a shaky voice reporting a speeding car nearly clipping a mailbox. Within minutes, more reports flooded in, a sedan ignoring red lights, barreling through intersections, brushing dangerously close to anyone in its path. Patrol cars joined the pursuit, but the driver never hesitated, taking sudden turns down narrow streets as though familiar with every alley and back road. Blue and red lights reflected off windows and fences, flashing across the quiet homes where families watched in disbelief. Residents peered through curtains and half-open doors, catching glimpses of the chaos. Some described the vehicle fishtailing wildly, others noticed how it seemed to hesitate at certain corners before accelerating again, as if the driver were debating where to run. The chase stretched across several blocks, each turn revealing more evidence of panic. A garbage can lay toppled, a garden fence splintered where the sedan had clipped it. Yet the car never fully lost control, suggesting the person behind the wheel possessed skill or sheer adrenaline-driven luck. What struck the officers most was the complete disregard for their signals. The sirens grew louder, the commands over loudspeakers clearer, but the driver never slowed. Instead, the sedan surged forward with bursts of speed that made even experienced pursuers uneasy. The smell of burning rubber lingered in the cold night air, mingling with the faint scent of wet leaves. By the time the vehicle vanished into the outskirts of town, hearts were pounding across Willow Creek. What began as a routine patrol had erupted into a mystery that would grip the community for weeks. The fleeing woman had turned a quiet evening into a spectacle of danger and unanswered questions, leaving behind nothing but tire marks and the unsettling sense that something far more sinister lay beneath her frantic flight. Investigators wasted no time once the white sedan disappeared into the darkness. Within an hour, they confirmed the vehicle's registration. Lena Cross, 29, a quiet resident of a small apartment complex near the town center. Her record showed only minor traffic tickets and a steady job at a local print shop, nothing to suggest the chaos she had unleashed. Detectives arrived at her building expecting a simple welfare check, but the moment they stepped inside, the air felt different, stale and unsettled, as though someone had left in a rush and never looked back. Drawers hung half open, clothes draped across the floor in awkward piles. A kitchen chair was overturned, and a single light in the hallway flickered weakly, casting shadows across the walls. In the bedroom, a torn photograph lay near the nightstand. Half of the image was missing, the remaining piece showing Lena standing beside an unknown figure whose hand rested lightly on her shoulder. The face was gone, ripped clean away, leaving only a blurred outline and a faint scar across the knuckles. Nothing else in the apartment hinted at where she might have gone, yet every detail suggested she hadn't planned to return. Security footage from earlier that afternoon provided the first clear sighting. Cameras at a small grocery store captured Lena entering just after noon. She bought a single bottle of water and paid in cash, her movements restless and sharp. Her eyes darted to the entrance every few seconds, and she left before the cashier could offer a receipt. Witnesses recalled that she seemed pale and distracted, as if she were listening for something only she could hear. From there, her trail grew faint. Detectives canvassed the neighborhood, but neighbors could offer only fragments of information. One thought they heard hurried footsteps around midnight the previous evening. Another mentioned a dark pickup truck idling across the street 2 nights in a row. None could say for sure whether these events were connected, but the pattern of unease began to emerge. By the end of the day, the investigation had shifted from a reckless driving incident to something far stranger. Lena Cross had left behind a life that appeared ordinary on paper, but carried the unmistakable marks of fear. The unanswered calls on her phone, the torn photograph, and the eerie disarray of her home all pointed to a story much deeper than a simple flight from traffic violations. Detectives were certain of only one thing: Lena's escape was not random. Something or someone had pushed her to run. The pursuit of Lena Cross stretched beyond Willow Creek and into the neighboring county before dawn, leaving a trail of scattered evidence and rising questions. Police dispatch logs captured a series of frantic updates as her white sedan ricocheted from one minor collision to another. First came a delivery van struck broadside at an empty intersection, its side panel caved in with a smear of red paint and a faint streak of blood. Minutes later, an SUV parked along a quiet residential street lost its rear bumper when Lena clipped it at high speed. Each impact seemed calculated rather than clumsy, as if she were deliberately testing the limits of both car and pursuers. Officers expected to find her injured or cornered after so many violent encounters, yet the chase carried on. Tire fragments littered the road like breadcrumbs, but she never slowed. Surveillance cameras from gas stations and highway overpasses caught glimpses of her face, eyes wide, jaw clenched, hair whipping in the wind, projecting a mix of determination and sheer terror. Analysts later noticed that she appeared to glance at her mirrors more than at the road ahead, as if watching for something far more threatening than flashing police lights. When the sedan was finally discovered abandoned near an isolated gas station hours later, the scene deepened the mystery. The driver's side door hung open, keys still in the ignition, but there was no sign of Lena. Inside the vehicle, officers found a weathered backpack stuffed with nearly $15,000 in cash. A folded paper map marked with uneven red X's across remote areas of the county, and a cheap prepaid phone filled with dozens of unanswered calls from an unregistered number. None of the calls contained voicemails, and the last incoming ring had occurred only minutes before the car was left behind. Forensics teams swept the area but came up empty. No footprints led away from the gas station, and no one remembered seeing a woman on foot. A clerk working the night shift claimed he never heard a car pull in, despite the sedan being parked within sight of the building. The absence of surveillance footage from that hour due to a sudden power glitch added another layer of unease. Investigators pieced together a theory that Lena's collisions were not random accidents but deliberate attempts to slow or confuse an unseen follower. The careful spacing of the red XS on the map suggested planned stops rather than desperate improvisation. By sunrise, what had started as a chaotic car chase had transformed into a far more disturbing puzzle, one that hinted at a threat closing in on Lena long before the police ever gave chase. Detectives followed the red X's on the weathered map with a mix of urgency and unease, convinced they represented more than random locations. Each mark drew them farther from the main roads and deeper into places where few people ventured. The first stop was an abandoned rail tunnel on the edge of a forgotten industrial district. Graffiti covered the walls, but amid the spray-painted symbols, investigators discovered a fresh boot print in the damp soil, larger than Lena's shoe size and pressed deep as if someone had been waiting there recently. Nearby lay a broken wristwatch, its face cracked and hands frozen at 17 a.m., a time that matched no known event in the case. The second X led to a decaying roadside motel, long closed to travelers. Dust coated every surface. Yet in one room a single candle had burned down to a waxy puddle. On the nightstand rested a strip of black cloth tied into a tight knot, almost ceremonial. The air inside carried a faint metallic scent, like old blood, though no obvious stains were found. Detectives couldn't determine whether these details were Lena's signals or the work of someone following her. The third site was a boarded-up cabin deep in the woods, reachable only by a narrow dirt track. Here the forest pressed close and silent, the thick canopy blotting out daylight. Investigators forced the door open and found a child's shoe tucked neatly beneath a broken chair. No footprints surrounded it, and the interior showed no signs of wildlife or recent human activity except for that single, unsettling object. A trail camera mounted on a nearby tree should have provided clues, but the memory card had been removed. Witness reports added to the unease. Several locals claimed they had noticed a dark pickup truck lingering near each of these places in the days before the police arrived. One farmer recalled seeing it parked just beyond the tree line at dusk, engine running but headlights off. Surveillance cameras in Willow Creek captured a tall, broad-shouldered figure standing across from Lena's apartment building the night she fled, though the images were too grainy to identify. Piece by piece, a troubling picture emerged. Lena had not simply fled without reason. She appeared to be moving through a path of hidden rendezvous points, each leaving behind objects that hinted at a shared history with someone unknown. The deeper the detectives delved, the clearer it became that the chase had never been about evading traffic stops. Something older and far more personal had driven her frantic journey, and someone else seemed to be following every step. 2 days after Lena's abandoned sedan was found, a farmer walking the edge of a marshland miles from the highway noticed a single set of footprints in the damp soil. They trailed from the gravel road into a thick curtain of reeds and never came back out. Police teams arrived within the hour, spreading across the soggy ground with search dogs and drones, but the footprints ended abruptly at a patch of dark water. There was no sign of a body, no broken branches, no evidence of someone wading through the marsh. It looked as if Lena had stepped into the earth and vanished. Close to the waterline, investigators discovered her weathered backpack half buried in mud. The cache remained untouched, but the folded map was gone. In its place lay the missing half of the photograph found in her apartment, now soaked and beginning to dissolve. The torn image revealed more than before, the blurred companion. As hand rested firmly on Lena's shoulder, the skin marred by a deep, unmistakable scar across the knuckles. The scar matched no record in local databases and belonged to no known associate of hers. Forensic analysis later confirmed that the photograph had been ripped apart only days earlier, suggesting Lena carried the missing piece with her during the chase. Search efforts expanded through the surrounding fields and waterways. Helicopters scanned from above while divers combed the marsh, yet nothing emerged. No clothing, no footprints beyond the first set, not even a scrap of paper. Residents reported hearing distant engines at odd hours of the night, and one hunter claimed to see a dark pickup truck idling near the tree line just before dawn, but no vehicle was ever found. Theories multiplied quickly. Some believed Lena staged her disappearance to escape a dangerous stalker. Others whispered that the mysterious figure with the scar had finally caught up to her. A few locals speculated that she willingly met someone in the marsh, following a path known only to her and vanishing under their guidance. Investigators could confirm none of it. Months passed, then years, and the case remained open but stagnant. Lena Cross became a cautionary tale in Willow Creek, a name spoken with lowered voices whenever sirens echoed through the night. Tire marks on old roads faded, yet the sense of pursuit lingered. Whether she fled to start anew or was taken by the shadow that haunted her trail, no one could say. The final truth stayed hidden in the reeds, a reminder that not every chase ends with capture and not every runner is merely running away.